Okay, hello everyone. For this lecture, we'll be looking at the question type focusing on military governments or just the military itself. Okay, so therefore you must watch this lecture and then try to understand what the lines of argument are, all right, and to also clarify what case studies you want to use. Okay, because this question type right can also come out for your FE. Okay, so basically I'm just going to go through lines of argument and to show you how it's slightly different or a subset, okay, of the umbrella question on the overall effectiveness of maximum governments. Okay, because this one is just focusing on military, right? So this question is a stabilizing force. How far do you agree with this assessment of the military in independent SCA? Okay, so maybe I want to make it a little bit bigger, right? Okay, so the question type would be focusing on just the military. Okay, so therefore, whatever you say, all your case studies must have the military inside. If not, it's not relevant. Okay, and then basically the key question to ask would be whether the military played a major role, okay, in maintaining political stability, because that's the bottom line of whatever we are doing, right? It's always with reference to whether political stability, right, was maintained or not. Okay, so in a nutshell, okay, so the table would be the military would play a dominant force, right, in these countries. Okay, but the military would play a subordinate force, okay, in these countries. Okay, so therefore they are less important, more important, less important. That's what happens in Southeast Asia. We always have like a spectrum one. Right, so let's look at the introduction. Now this part, right, is the preamble. Okay, so basically you're not supposed to like spend too much time on this preamble. Just try to keep it short and sweet. The idea is, right, your LA must be longer than your preamble. Okay, your LA must be longer than your preamble. So I know that this define the role of the SCA military, right? It might be a little bit long, okay, because I give you the full sentence, okay, because it's really to make sure that you understand why is it that in SCA, right, the military is a little bit different, okay, from the conventional image, okay, of what we would usually associate with the military. Okay, so the purpose of the military in Southeast Asia, right, is that it actually can become politicized, all right, can become politicized, all right. So therefore they are given a larger role in nation building and they are now politicized. So therefore their role, right, is not just to like national defense, okay, protect the country from enemies, okay, but it's also they have a political role, all right, and this politicizing, right, was largely due to JO as well as decolonial legacies. Okay, so it goes all the way back to like decolonization, go back to like your first topic, okay, and then you have a three criterion, okay, so like basically whenever you're asked to like assess political stability, right, you always must have these three criterion, because these three criterion, they are like the most comprehensive, okay, it provides you with the most comprehensive benchmark, okay, in which to assess political stability across the entire spectrum, right? And then you do a question assumption. So the idea is, all right, you must be able to make your criteria relevant, okay, because otherwise there's no point in your criteria being a white elephant. You just say it but you don't refer to it. Okay, so it'd be great, okay, if you can actually, when you look at the question assumption, and this question has a question assumption because the question already has a stand. Okay, it says that the military is a stabilizing force, then ask you whether you agree or not, right? So therefore the question thus assumes, okay, that the military was able to promote the three criteria. So therefore the assumption of the question is that it is a positive case study for all three criteria, okay, and therefore it was a positive force. All right, so try to establish some kind of link. So it's very important that you actually demonstrate this awareness. Okay, now the important part, which is the LOA. So for SCA, right, we always have 3 LOAs. I don't know why. Okay, 3 is a lucky number. Okay, so the first LOA, all right, because it's stabilizing, right, so therefore it's positive, right, so you must always start with positive, okay, not negative yet. All right, so therefore the most obvious in which the military was a positive force, which is very obvious, okay, is criterion 1, obviously, okay, because criterion 1 is the ability to suppress centrifugal threats, right? So that is the bread and butter of the military, okay? So therefore, definitely they'll be able to suppress centrifugal threats, okay, in the earliest of independence. Now remember, centrifugal threats, they are a phase 1 problem, okay? So basically, they will be the litmus test of early democratic governments, right? Okay, and a lot of times these early democratic governments needed help from the military, okay, in order for them to be able to like manage the minority uprisings, communist uprisings. Okay, so therefore the military was very important, okay, very effective, okay, through the use of force, obviously, okay, because the military, obviously they will use the military solution, okay. However, also what we have known, all right, that this military involvement, right, actually might have the effect or the consequence of politicizing the military, all right, such that they would like seize power, okay, seize political power. So therefore, military involvement, okay, might come at the expense of democracy in some countries. right? So therefore there is one like consequence, and it's considered analysis. Okay, so let's move on to the LOA 2. Okay, so therefore LOA 1 refers to like criterion 1. Okay, so you have criterion 2 and 3, right? So that will be your LOA 2. Okay, so this essay will show that in terms of governance, so that's criterion 2. Okay, the military actually has a mixed record. Okay, mixed record, because some military governments are better than others, okay, at in maintaining stability through constitutional processes and elections. That's criterion 2. Okay, however, the military was least effective, okay, in promoting stability through criterion 3, because I mean, if they can do business, they wouldn't go to the military or go to the army, right? They will, like, be rich businessmen, right? Why go to the army? So this means that they're probably not very business savvy, probably doesn't really take, like, economics. Okay, so that's why typically, all right, our experience has been that when the military was involved in economics, in business, they would be prone to economic mismanagement because they are like less savvy, okay, in terms of, like, running a business, okay, and even like corruption. Okay, so therefore they were least effective. So you can see that it's actually a very nice spectrum lah. Okay, so like criterion 1 is most effective, all right, criterion 2 is mixed, midway, criterion 3 is least effective, so just nice. Okay, and of course at the end you need to take a stand. Okay, take a stand, right? And then your stand is that actually you can actually have a more nuanced answer, right? You can say that my stand is that they are only a stabilizing force when it comes to maintaining public order and protecting national unity. So which is with reference to criterion 1. Okay, so let's move on to the body paragraphs. All right, so what I did was that I just literally copy and paste this LOA1 to make it into my topic sentence. So this is just to reinforce again, because some of you are still not clear or like refuse to understand, all right, that the LOAs, all right, basically they are the thesis statement. Okay, together they will comprise the thesis statement, right? And then basically, this thesis statement, okay, is the combination or compilation, okay, of all your topic sentences put together. All right, so therefore LOA1 will be the first part. Okay, so it can be carried out in like 1, 2, or even 3 paragraphs lah. But all these 3 paragraphs, they are important to show that particular line of argument. Okay, so let's look at LOA1, which is with reference to criterion 1. Okay, centrifugal threats. Right, then so army has come to power in times of crisis that democratic governments cannot solve. Okay, so therefore they were a dominant role in bringing about an end to democratic government. So therefore they were very effective, okay, in maintaining stability, okay, by suppressing centrifugal threats. But then one unexpected outcome, okay, would be that they also use this opportunity, right, to bring an end to democracy, all right, because they seize power, okay, and have a coup, okay, and then they establish their own government, okay, they establish themselves in power. So therefore you have two case studies here. Obviously you only choose one, you don't need to have both, all right? And if you have time, okay, then you can have an even Malaysia. So Malaysia is always an even Malaysia, as an exception. Okay, where the military actually preserved the democratic structure of Malaysia, because what the military did, alright, was that yes, they stepped in. Okay, there was 2 years of maximum government, as you all well know. Okay, but after that, right, the military actually went back to the strictly military role. So they didn't have any hang-ups. Okay, so they were quite willing to relinquish political power, okay, in 1971, and went back to that strictly military role. So therefore, in the process, okay, the military had been like a guardian of democracy. Okay, so initially they were still brought into restore order, so therefore they are still very important for criterion 1, but they didn't use it as an opportunity to seize political power, so it's that an exception. Okay, now the reason why the military felt that they had to seize power, okay, was because they felt that they had the right, they were very justified, okay, because of their own positive self-image, okay, due to the contributions during Lee Call, okay, especially, right, and at the same time they would also have a very negative image of early democratic governments, okay, especially if they are inexperienced, governed by incompetent leaders, okay, and very, very divided, so like fighting. So like two leaders come to mind, Sukarno and UNU. All right, and so therefore, from the perspective of the military, right, they were like completely justified, okay, in seizing power, okay, even in South Vietnam. But maybe South Vietnam, if you want, you can just ignore South Vietnam altogether, okay, just concentrate on Indonesia and Burma. All right, so that's LOA1. So LOA1 is very clear. All right, the military very clearly has been a stabilizing force, okay, when it comes to suppressing centrifugal threats. In fact, so stable, right, that they even seize power. Okay, and like become maximum government. Then you have a however. So therefore, however, LA2 will move the role and contributions of the military, right, to criterion 2, okay, which is the ability to promote legitimacy via constitutional or parliamentary or democratic, they all kind of mean the same thing, okay, constitutional processes and elections. All right. So for what you have known, okay, with regards to maximum governments, okay, so that's a bigger subset, right? Bigger set, right? So the military is a subset, yeah. For criterion 2, maximum governments typically have a mixed record. So got some positive, some negative. Okay, so the idea is when you have a mixed record, you must have a variable or determining factor. Okay, and you also know that for criterion 2, the determining factor is whether the government was willing to share political space, okay, willing to accommodate or tolerate political opposition, right? So therefore, when they want to share, they are willing to share power, they can accommodate political opposition, then they will be a positive stabilizing force. Okay, even if this government, right, is a military government. So we have Suharto's Indonesia. So at the first thing you need to do, right, is that you need to tell me that you need to justify that it is still a military dominated government. All right, so therefore, this will then make it relevant. Okay, so you cannot give me like a civilian dictator kind of example. All right, but you must show how the military was involved in politics. Okay, and yet willing to share power. Okay, and yet willing to share power. So Suharto revised Constitution 1945, allowed political opposition to survive, to exist. Okay, and there were regular elections. All right. And then Suharto's Golkar Party, which was also dominated by the military, they have a lot of votes, and so it legitimized the military's authority using such processes. Okay, so that is Suharto's Indonesia. Okay, so if you want, you can also have a Thailand. Alright, Tanom, okay, Tanom had a constitution in 1968, so therefore it's a political process, right? Alright, so therefore, it allows some kind of liberalization, but the military still very much control a lot of things. Okay, so there must be still like very clear military control, but they share power. Okay. On the other hand, okay, so that's a positive case study. Just choose one. I don't need both. All right. Positive case study. Okay, military governments that subverted constitutional processes and elections would engender political instability in the long run. Okay, because there will be like you just cause resentment. Okay, and that might be a backlash in terms of popular opposition. Okay, so Nevins Burma would be the most obvious one. All right, so therefore, you must show me that how the military was involved in politics. Okay, because the military themselves formed the BSPP. Okay, and yeah, and they have this very farcical election process whereby only one political party took part. Okay, and obviously they won everything. It's very strange. Okay, there were mere trappings of democracy. They were fast. It's not a genuine exercise in popular representation. So there would be political instability in the long run. All right. Now, if you have time, okay, so you can have another alternative perspective. All right. So it's purely optional. Okay, because this to tell you that actually sometimes the military can be, because over here, right, these two examples here, okay, they are when the military was a dominant force in politics. Okay, but it's a positive and negative case study. So the military was a dominant force in politics, but still share power. So still a positive stabilizing force. Then the Nevins Burma example, right, would be the military is a dominant force in politics, but then don't want to share power. Okay, so therefore it's a negative stabilizing force. All right, but then there's the third way. So yeah, in SCA we have so many different permutation and combinations. Very confusing, right? But this is entirely optional. See whether you got time or not. Okay, so this third way, right, is when the military did not play a dominant role in politics. Okay, did not play a dominant role in politics, but can still stabilize because it's largely like play a supporting role, all right, to the government. Okay, so therefore it is still a positive force. So that is a third perspective. Okay, so we actually have two case studies, which is our shining stars, all right, Singapore and even Vietnam. Okay, so basically this is about how the military was subordinated to the government. Okay, but in this subordinate position, right, they were still able to contribute positively, okay, and still be a stabilizing force. Okay, still be a stabilizing force. All right, so therefore this tells you that military is also very important because yeah, whether they are subordinate or dominant, they can still contribute. Okay, so therefore these two examples you can read yourself. So that's LA2. Finally, moving on to criterion 3, right? Finally, the military was least effective, okay, in promoting social economic development. In fact, the military was typically a source of instability. So therefore, the military here became a liability, okay, became the liability, right? So therefore, you have a few examples here. So you have 3 examples. Yeah, you just choose one, okay, because they're all negative. All right. So there's a Dwi Fongsi, okay, in Suharto's Indonesia. So there is where the military can also play a social political role. all right, and the military was involved in like, yeah, business and stuff. Okay, and Thailand also, all right. So the idea is you must actually establish clearly the link between the military government and economics and business. Okay, so the link is over here lah. Okay, so the military got economics, the military were involved in both, the government as well as like business. Okay, promoting social economic development. So then we have the Burmese way to socialism. Okay, and then finally the litmus test, all right, the litmus test of whether the military was a stabilizing or destabilizing force. So we must always have this litmus test, which is the popular opposition. Okay, maybe, okay, I kind of forgot. Okay, I'll do it now. All right, yeah, so you can have a LA for should be here. So remember I said all your lines of argument, topic sentence must be in your thesis statement, right? Okay, so therefore, yeah, you need to have this test, final test, all right, of ultimately, okay, was the military stabilizing or destabilizing force. Okay, which brings me to this, right? Actually, right, you can there's a like a transition or there's a link, okay, between this LA3 and LA4. Okay, because a lot of times we have popular opposition, okay, because of public anger, okay, over allegations of corruption and economic mismanagement, because it directly affected the people's bread and butter. Okay, so therefore they are very angry, so they go and protest. All right, so we see that in Suharto's Indonesia, we see that in Nevin's Burma. So therefore, this tells you that this is indeed like the Achilles heel of the military government lah. Okay, that they cannot promote criterion 3, right, and therefore it made themselves to be like vulnerable, okay, to popular opposition because people very angry, right? Then so therefore, yes, the involvement of the military, okay, in politics, okay, can be a source of popular opposition. So therefore, ultimately, the military might not be so stabilize, so much of a stabilizing force after all, okay. And we must also see whether the military, right, how they responded to popular opposition. Okay, so how the military responded to popular opposition, right, can also determine whether ultimately they are a positive or negative stabilizing force. Okay, so let's see. Right, so for Marcos's Philippines, okay, the military was actually a double-edged sword for Marcos, okay, because the military actually sided with the masses during the Exile Revolution, okay, and this largely contributed to the downfall of Marcos, because Marcos don't have support, okay, from his own army, all right, because it started with some defection, right, of a key individual from the military, okay, so that's why in the end, the response of the military, okay, would then ensure that Marcos has failed. Okay, then after that, in contrast, all right, the military in Burma was also used to brutally suppress the democratic opposition. Right, so therefore, this is to show that like these two, right, is like there are two examples to show when the military was involved, okay, and the military was not involved. Okay, when the military was involved or not involved. Okay, and then over here we are saying that yes, they are used to brutally suppress, right, and therefore it brought about the end, okay, of the 8888 uprising. All right, so let's look at the conclusion. Okay, now when it comes to criterion 1 as well as popular opposition, so with regards to like popular protest or protest from the people whether it's in a communist uprising or minority uprising or popular protest, so these are the three types of like response from the people. Okay, the military played a decisive stabilizing role. Okay, decisive stabilizing role. Okay, so therefore they are very important in trying to suppress centrifugal threats as well as popular opposition. Okay, so therefore this testified to the peculiar significance of the SCA military in politics. Okay, and actually especially like for example even in popular opposition, right, in the example of Ne Win's Burma, okay, it signifies like further repression, okay, further military repression. Okay, so it's like yes, they promote stability, but actually it's a negative form of stability, I guess. Okay, because they actually become even more repressive. Okay, but it still works, right? Because they manage to like suppress the centrifugal threats according to criterion 1. Okay, however, the military was less effective, okay, in criterion 2 and 3. All right, so they could only be more effective when a stable force, all right, when it showed a commitment to constitutional processes and elections. Okay, so therefore the military at best, okay, can contribute best to what they do best, okay, which is to suppress centrifugal threats, all right, and to respond to popular opposition. Okay, but then after that, right, it actually, if you can think further about it, okay, how the military responded, okay, with regards to centrifugal threats as well as popular opposition, right, it will not make, you know, criterion 2 easier, okay, because if you gain power through repression or you gain power through a coup, right, it will make it more challenging for you, okay, to prove your legitimacy in terms of criterion 2 and 3. Okay, so therefore, yes, you kind of like win the battle, but I'm not sure whether you'll win the war as well. Because yes, you win the battle because you're able to seize power, you're able to gain power and establish immediate stability, all right, by suppressing the centrifugal threats and popular opposition. Okay, but would this context, all right, lead to further stability in the long term, okay, with regards to criterion 2 and 3? Yeah, so that's something that you need to think about. All right, so basically this would be what the military is for, okay, useful for, okay, in terms of the maintaining of political stability in Southeast Asia. Okay, and what you're supposed to do, okay, is that you're supposed to like watch this before your FE. Okay, so if you are listening to this after your FE, right, it's too late. All right, and then yeah, and then just memorize the lines of argument, okay, and to decide what case study you want to use, and then make sure that whatever you memorize with regards to a case study, right, is in a very concise manner. Okay, so I'll be going through like 1 or 2 more such questions, all right, also record, and then you just watch it and then try to understand from there. Okay, so I'll see you in the next lecture.